Yo, what's going on, people? Andre here. Yesterday, I just wrapped up the maddest interview you're about to see on the net. I literally took Michael from 0 to 3.5k in his first 3 days, and then to 6k within the first 6 days of him working with me. Now, we discussed some very important topics: buying courses, not getting the results, not being able to speak to who you bought the course from, not mention any names, and just being able to work with someone one-to-one to get him through the whole entire process, and to have someone checking in with him every day to just keep pushing him to that goal, right? But like I said, peeps, let's just get straight into the video. This is about to be the hardest video on the net. Make sure you share this up, like, comment. Oh, and that reminds me, I'm giving one of you lucky commenters free mentorship for the rest of your fucking life. So make sure you comment on the video.
So yeah, like I said, this is my first one. I just would like to know personally, if I was like watching this video, I would like to know like where you was at before, what you were doing agency wise, right? You don't have to say like numbers, but like if you could tell them like where you was at with your agency in life, where you were living before, your mindset, then working with me, and then like after, if that makes sense. And feel free to introduce yourself as well, by the way.
Yeah, no. So my name is Derek Schleeps. I've been in the agency space for like 3.5 years, actually over that at this point. Basically my backstory was like I was a gymnast growing up as a kid. I was a gymnastics coach in my 20s, and I just realized like I was going to hit a ceiling, and I was never going to make more money like I wanted to, and I was limited. So I was like, well, I'll do web development. So I taught myself front and back end web development over a year, and then I realized, oh, I can actually do marketing instead and start a business. So this was like 2019. I started that. And I was getting clients and stuff, and things were going all right. And then COVID hit, lost a lot of clients, did some media buying. And it just got to the point where, I was like, well, I'm still working a full-time job and I'm doing my business on the side. I need some help to, actually do this as a full-time thing. But, I made some money trading crypto, and then I used that to kind of quit my job. I had some savings, and I kind of went full time. I was like, okay, now I really need to dial down and get, like really focus on the business and make it work. But there was a lot of issues that I still had, not only in my systems, but, with sales, which is what you helped me a lot with. And so it was basically like, I was still getting a couple clients here and there, maybe, $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, $500 a month. Right. But that's not a business I could live off of, right? But I had some savings. And so basically I was like, I'm going to just invest in, getting more help. And, you helped me a lot with the sales piece. We had a lot of conversations, and really long conversations that helped me tremendously. And a lot of it was just mindset. That was like one of the biggest things is like, I remember, I was telling you about how I was so anxious and freaked out about just doing the discovery calls. And I was telling you, like, my gums are literally receding. I'm grinding my teeth at night. I was just like so stressed out about it. And you're like, Derek, I don't care if your teeth are like freaking falling out. Like you just need to push through. And that was good. Like, I needed that at the time. And you taught me a lot of things that just from your experience that helped me just kind of understand, like, I need to be a little bit more not really confident, and not really aggressive, but just kind of like not so passive, right? That was always my thing, is kind of just being too passive with the sales. And your whole thing was like, you really need to go after it, like, constantly pushing. And so basically, I over however many months that was, 3-4 months, got to 10K per month. And then, a few months later, now I'm at 20K per month. I'm always learning and growing, but I think that was like the biggest help, at least in the sales piece, was the mindset. And I mean, you would sit there and you would spend all this time looking at every little, this was the other big thing that really helped, that I have not gotten this from any other mentor except for you, any other person that's helped in that capacity. You actually sat down and went through like every little piece of my demo presentation, of my process, and like analyzed it and picked out what I was doing wrong, gave me very like specific things, like, you need to do this, and I want to see you doing this like tomorrow, and like very, very specific. That was super helpful. And I haven't gotten that kind of help at least on the sales side, from any other person I've worked with. It's, you know, I've gotten good advice from people, but breaking it down that extensively, and really, you know, like looking like at all the details, like what exactly are you saying here and why, and, you know, like breaking down your process, that was a huge help.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I think what I learned personally was just like, it kind of starts on the morning, right? How you kind of like structure your day. And on our journeys, I was going through what you were going through, like a kind of similar, right? So everything I was learning from like the therapist, I was just like relating back in like my terms. So yeah, that definitely helped me a lot and helped you a lot, which is great. The part I think most people would like to know is like the actual sales side, because before me, you kind of mentioned a little bit, before you started working with me, what's the highest deal you closed?
The highest, like, well, this was all pre-COVID. So you gotta realize, like, before COVID, in my niche, people running Facebook and Google ads for my, you know, for motivated sellers, I work with real estate investors, right? So
Yeah.
that was not as common. There were less people doing it. It was much easier to close someone. So I had closed like a 5K deal in the past, but I was having a lot of trouble because, you know, when I actually started to try to do the business full time just this year, one thing I struggled with is there's a lot more competition. Like I was dealing with people like in the sales, when I was talking to prospective, you know, clients, prospects and stuff on the phone, I realized like I'm getting compared to all of these other agencies now. I never had to deal with that in the past. So it's a lot different now than it was before. And I had to find ways to stand out, right? Which is, I think, something else you probably helped with. But no, yeah, I mean, I think in the summertime, like I had closed like $8,000 in one day, like in closed deals. Like I didn't collect that much in cash, but in the total amount, like in a single day, I closed like, you know, two new clients, 8K, like pretty good. So
yeah. And then after COVID coming from now, because I know, was it like a month ago, a couple of months ago, you sent me like your demo, I watched it, reviewed it, sent it back, and then the next message I got was like 3.5 deal, then like a 5K one, and then perhaps I think maybe another one after.
I don't remember. That was like a few months ago, but yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you mentioned also about like breaking down how I spend my time,
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That was something else that was like, that's like kind of related to the sales aspect because it's how I use my time, but that's more just like, that helped me because when you first are starting a business, you have to use your time really like a lot. Like your time is really, really taken up, you know, because you're doing everything. Then you start to delegate. And I just couldn't figure out what to focus on. And you were like, Derek, literally just follow up with all these people, every extra part of your day, follow up with them. And you basically showed me like you know, on how to break down my day on paper, and like every 5 minutes had something, like, you know, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes had something I was going to be doing. And it's like, okay, you have extra time, follow up with leads, extra time, follow up with leads. That really helped, like, because you have to have, like, for me, you know, my brain can get kind of scattered, and so having that written down on paper, you know, not trying to do all this stuff with like, you know, online Trello, all this different you know, different things I'm focusing on. It's just like one spot, one list, just follow up with the leads, call the leads, get on the phone. Like that was super helpful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think people are going to be interested to know like how you actually get clients, because I remember there was a time where I don't think you was like utilizing the Facebook group to the full extent. And then we kind of just got you to just go after warm, right, instead of like cold. And I think from there is when you started to like, I don't know how many meetings you were doing before, but I think you were doing like 12, 30 meetings a week. Is that right? Or
I can't remember what you're referring to exactly. I mean, I was booking, when I was doing it on my own, I was booking a lot of meetings. Actually, you know, eventually I passed that on to my VA. I trained her out on how to do it. But you know, we actually had to start having the VA qualify the leads more, because I was just getting too many meetings, and I was like, you know, I need to actually qualify these people more. So I actually take on less meetings than I did before, but they're with better, better quality.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know, and if someone like, because most of the people watch my channel are like new in it, so I guess like if you were starting from scratch, knowing what you know now, like what would you done differently to get to where you are now, like 20K a month?
What would I have done differently? Well,
Let me say it like this. You've got till New Year's Day to get to back to 20K a month. Knowing everything you know now, team, systems, processes, sales, what would you have done differently?
well, I mean, it's hard to put so I can answer this in two ways, right? There's like the deeper aspect of this is not giving up, because that was a huge thing for me, but that's not quite the same as thinking about it in terms of like, okay, what would you do to get from 0 to 20K in what, like 2 months or something, like, what would I do with that? So I can answer that question. So that's the number one thing, is just you're gonna fail, and you need to learn how to overcome it and just keep going forward, because that's the only way to really make it, right? That's the one thing. But if I'm just looking at, okay, how would I do things differently, like just to scale it quickly? I would try to probably just do more volume initially. That's the main thing. More outreach. You have to do outreach. It's simple, but you have to do outreach, and you have to track it. You have to look at what works, what doesn't, continue with what works. You have to obviously be careful about, you don't want to get profiles restricted, and, by sending too many messages, and, that's more and more of an issue now. But whatever outreach you do, whatever form you do it in a way where, you're not going to run into those issues, and then, and do as much as you can. Because it's really just a numbers game, and you have to put yourself through the numbers. Like, if you're not comfortable with something, this is something that I kind of learned, was that at first I was all freaked out and worried about, oh, what are people going to think if I'm messaging them and reaching out to them? And what if they don't like what if they think I'm just selling them something? And what's their perception of me, right? You're afraid of what people think. And then it's like, well, actually, I don't care. I don't care, because you've done it so many times that, like, like you do all the numbers, and then you start to realize, okay, there are people interested. And for the ones that aren't interested, like, don't dwell on it. And then you come to the next point. It's like, okay, now I'm nervous and worried about the discovery calls. What are they going to think of me when I'm trying to, what do I say? How do I approach that? Maybe this is easier for some people. For me, it was like, like I was saying, it was kind of difficult. I was anxious about it. And then it's like, okay, discovery calls, I got that down. It doesn't matter. Now I get nervous on the demo calls, on the sales call. And then you start closing clients, and you're like, okay, this is no big deal. Some are going to say yes, some are going to say no. And then you get worried about, okay, how do I do fulfillment? And then, there's always like an extra problem. And this is the thing, is like, what I would have done differently is not worried as much about each individual stage in the process, and tried instead to enjoy the challenge and push harder.
And a lot of people starting out haven't got results. Like, would you just say go in and just try to get the meeting first? Would you work for free? Because I tell people just to go straight for it. Would you say the same thing, or would you suggest trying to get results first?
You're talking about if they have a media buyer, or if they don't?
So say, okay, I've got a media buyer now. I suppose to kind of answer my question, right? Because a lot of people get caught up with not having results first, so they don't go in for the meeting, right?
Yeah.
So I suppose if you get a media buyer, you can leverage their results actually. So
yeah, exactly. So if you have a media buyer, and that media buyer has results, you can say, hey, I'm trying to get, some business for us. Like, can I use your results, your case study as, and kind of explain. Just make sure if you do that, you have an understanding of that case study, so that you can actually explain, like, look, this is the client, this is where they were at, this is what they did. And these are the results that we've gotten for them. And that's, it's fairly simple. If you're doing it yourself, and you're trying to just learn how to run the ads on your own, you got to there's a few things you can do. Is like, you can do the sell through education, right? You're just kind of educating the prospect about advertising, kind of demonstrating that you kind of know what you're talking about. Yeah. If you don't know what you're talking about, another route that you can take is you could say, look, I'm new to this, just be honest and say, like, I'm just trying to get some case studies. I'd be happy to try this out with you for free and just kind of educate them on what you would do, how you would do it. And, you know, they basically just say, yeah, you just pay for the ad spend. I'll just run your ads and we can test it out. Right. Just kind of approach it from like a networking standpoint, and then just try to, you know, just offer that. And then you get if you get results, you have a case study. Okay, now you can charge money for it, you know. But if you have someone that already has results, then just, you know, just try to close them as a client. You use the case study from the media buyer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With everything going on in the world now, bro, and it's nearly Christmas, if you were just starting out, what niche would you go for?
If I was just starting out, what niche would I go for? Like in the agency space?
Yeah, because like it's near Christmas, it's getting to that time where everyone's starting to like, you know, some niches are like call me back after New Year, some niches are thriving. Like with your $20,000 a month experience, and now you're living in Miami, if you're gonna dip your feet into a niche, where would you go? Like what would be your go-to?
Yeah, that's hard because I mean, I know my niche so well,
Mm.
right? Like I know this niche really well. So, you know, but other niches, I mean, you just want to make sure, man, that's hard. Because I've thought about this, you know, I've thought like, well, what if I was going to switch niches? What would I do?
Mm.
I think it doesn't really matter. Like, there's no like one perfect niche. I think you have to just look at several factors, right? You have to look at what can you charge? Okay, like what is the is it a high ticket kind of deal? Like with me with real estate, like if you work with agents, if you work with investors, that's high ticket. You know, the leads that they get, if they close them, they make a lot of money. So you can charge, you know, you can charge a good retainer. I think contractors, actually, I would probably do contractors, honestly, if I was in the US. And I say that just because I have some other like resources to probably to do well, you know, with contractors. So, you know, roofers, plumbers, you know, I mean, I know solar is kind of competitive, but like just general contractors in, you know, I mean, I'm speaking from, you know, the perspective of being in the US.
Yeah.
That's probably what I would do, because there's a million of them and they don't know how to do ads and they're higher ticket and they need help, and it's not something that's too complicated to do lead gen for them. And you can do with contractors, you can do Google, it's probably good to do Google pay-per-click, you know, SEO. You can actually, you know, you'll have clients for longer maybe than doing with Facebook ads. And so that might be what I would choose. But again, you can do any niche. The thing is just like, can you charge high ticket for it? That's number one. Is there a lot of people in the niche? So is it, you don't want to get too small of like, you don't want your niche to have like too small of an audience to the point where it's hard to scale, right? Can you find those people at scale, right? For example, real estate agents, they're everywhere. Everyone and their mother is an agent, right? It's not hard to find them. But there's also a lot of competition in that niche, right? So, you know, like that's kind of what I would probably do. That's the way I would look at it. Like, you just want to make sure that it's a doable niche where you can make a good amount of money, where you can scale, you know, where the numbers are there. A lot of people say, well, isn't this such and such niche too saturated? Everything is saturated. If something's saturated, that just means that there's money there. It's just more of a matter of how do you personally stand out, right? You know, and even that just is, I think, sometimes overrated. A lot of it just comes down to experience and confidence, right? And just kind of just pushing through and building the business. You know, unless you're doing something like new that no one else is doing, like there's always going to be competition. You just have to just get used to being confident and saying like, yeah, this is what we do. This is how we do it. We know what we're doing. We can get you results. And then, you know, improving over time. But in terms of niche selection, like, yeah, I'd probably go with contractors if I had to choose like a specific one.
All right, cool. All right, cool. And would you go for, because a question I get asked, like TikTok, is it going off Facebook, TikTok? So like in your professional experience, what do you think is going to be a better service for a beginner? I know every niche is different, but would you go for Facebook or TikTok? Like
in terms of ads?
Yeah. Because everyone asks me, should I go on TikTok? Is it the next thing? So what's your opinion of that?
TikTok is new. Like, I don't know. I don't know as much about TikTok. Like, I know TikTok's a lot of like content generation. Like, for example, for my niche, the best thing is, usually either Facebook or PPC, depending on the goals and the budget of the client. Yeah, I would honestly say, like, if they can go more towards something where the client's gonna be retained for longer, that's what I would choose. So like, if with TikTok or Facebook ads, like, that the average, you got to look at the average sales cycle, right? With TikTok and Facebook, that sales cycle might be and I mean, not for the client, but for you, like, how long is that client going to stick around? Generally, clients, I find, unless they're doing like a really wide campaign, they don't stick around too long with Facebook, whereas with Google, they tend to stick longer because it's just better quality leads. Now, that's not always the case, but that's something you'd want to look at. So like TikTok, you just got to be careful, because you got to make sure that it's proven for whatever niche you're looking at. But I just know that with some niches, like, Google PPC, SEO, you're going to have clients that are going to stick around longer than you would with Facebook and potentially, TikTok, Instagram, things like that. It really depends on the niche though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if that made sense. It's just, what I've noticed is, like, when we get a client for Facebook,
Yeah.
if they're just sticking to like a single local market, they will test it out. And with Facebook, I think that they may not stick around as long as they probably would if they were doing Google PPC. And then obviously SEO, it's a longer time frame. It's just because the leads generally are higher motivated, but the only thing is, like, not everyone's going to have the budget to do Google pay-per-click. So Facebook in a lot of cases makes sense. I'm happy where we're at because I have so much experience with Facebook. We have such a good system with it that our clients actually do stick around for a while with our Facebook ads, because we're just really, really good at it for our niche. So it really just kind of depends.
Makes sense. If someone was debating to work with me or join the program, like, what would you say to that person, like, on the fence? I'm an RN, I guess.
On the fence about working with you?
Yeah.
Well, I would tell them, like, you got to understand, like, how much effort and energy and how much attention to detail that Andre puts into the clients that he works with. Like, that was the biggest thing, is like, you genuinely dug deep into every single thing that I was doing. And like, so there's a couple ways to look at it, right? Like, if you're thinking about, like, okay, is this worth the money, or, to invest? Like, you have to think, there's two ways to think about it. Number one, when you invest into any mentorship, any program, you are committing to yourself, right? You are committing to yourself to work hard to make it work. Because if you pay money to have someone help you, you're like, wow, I'm invested, I need to make this work. So that's one aspect of it. And I think that's a very good thing to do. Like, I'm a strong believer in investing money into growing and improving, because you can only get so far on your own with certain things. Like, yes, you could probably figure it out over time, but that's just going to take you like a really long time with certain things, because you got to do it all yourself. But if you can work with someone who knows exactly what they're doing, right, and can help you get there faster, that's going to be a huge benefit. So number one, when you put that money up to work with someone, you are basically incentivizing yourself to, like, it's psychologically you're going to have to justify to yourself, like, I just paid this money, I need to get the most out of this, right? And so you're going to grow from that no matter what. But second, and more importantly, is that Andre, he makes it worth, like basically you provided like 3 to 4 to 5 times the amount of value that I put, like, that I invested. So that's the main thing, is like, you not only, it wasn't only me like trying to like work as hard as I could to make it worth and to grow, but you intentionally like dug really deep into, like, how can I help Derek succeed? Like that's the biggest thing, is like you like way over delivered on everything. And so, no matter what, you're going to get a lot of value out of it, and you're going to grow from working with Andre. So I would say, like, that's the biggest thing, is like, if you're thinking, like, am I gonna, is this worth it? Like, yes, 100% it's worth it.